All right, so we have one last presentation before we break for lunch. We have Gregory Markou, who is partner and VP of engineering at ChainSafe Systems. So welcome on stage.
I wish Zach was here because definitely not the founder of White Block. Yeah, so hi guys. Today I'll be talking about basically how cross-chain collaboration is building ETH2. And what I mean by that is like multiple different blockchains, different ecosystems are all helping kind of shape next generation of Ethereum. Oh, neat. Okay, and then pointer, cool. Yeah, this is like normally like a 30-minute presentation, 40 minutes, so I'm gonna really skim things through and kind of skip over things. If you don't know about ChainSafe, we're a Toronto-based blockchain research development firm working on building like general infrastructure for Web3. And we have one big philosophy that we all stand by, and that's we're blockchain agnostic. We don't care who you are, what you do. We value every project on its technology, its merit, and essentially its philosophies. And if that meets our criteria, we will build infrastructure for you, and that's basically what we do. So, for example, we are working, we built the Gourley testnet at ETH Berlin. We're working on an ETH2 client, and we are also working on a Polkadot runtime environment. So as you can see, that's already 2 chains, and yes, I know it's contentious, right? A lot of people have a problem with that one. But their philosophies are great, like when it comes down to the actual technology, so I'll get into that later. Basically, yeah, so how is this actually happening? We had a bunch of good talks already about like kind of ETH 2.0, so I'm gonna kind of skim over that stuff. We have phase 0, 1, 2, and 3. And what I'm gonna touch on is already in phase 0, we're gonna notice that we have a lot of other people's good work and effort being implemented into ETH 2. And just some quick math here to kind of look at what's happening in ETH 2. I think these numbers are actually a little off. Danny Ryan had some better ones, but basically we got about 9 to 11 implementations running right now. About 54 unique people contribute to the actual specification itself, and roughly 183 contributing across all implementations, all specs, and that I tried to get rid of some of the duplicates, but I'm probably missing a few, and I've got some math here for it. And if Danny, you're in here, I caught you when you had 420 commits. Yeah. Basically, just quickly, to go over some of the components that I'll be talking about and why, and basically to show who else is working on these. We got Lib PDP, that's like our networking stack, simple serialized, BLS signatures, the general wire protocol, which is messaging, and many more, but I'm just gonna touch on these just for time reasons. So if we look at Lib PDP is written by Protocol Labs, originally out of IPFS. And it's basically how our beacon nodes are communicating with each other. Now this is being used across many other projects within the space. So you'll see Polkadot's using Lib PDP. I believe Cosmos might be considering it. Definity is also using Lib PDP. And there's a bunch of other blockchains using it. So as you can see, we're not the only ones building it. And when it comes to ETH 2.0, the guys at Prismatic have done an incredible job at actually helping progress the Go implementation of it. At ChainSafe, we're working on getting the JavaScript one up to spec. And as well as I believe Parity's also doing a good job on Rust. So as you can see, like we're contributing aggressively to Lib P2P, which is being used by other blockchains. And what's going on? Yes, back, sorry. Yeah, so like, that's just one part of the stack. This is like arguably one of the most important because it's how we talk to each other. And we are contributing aggressively to the spec, and as well as other chains are, as they're getting closer to using it and needing to build tooling, because right now a lot of other chains, like for instance, Definity and Polkadot are written in one language right now. And actually with the Polkadot runtime environment that we're building, it happens to be in Go. So we've actually identified a few small bugs since building it and have contributed back to it from the Polkadot ecosystem. So it's quite amazing, and you have to like really appreciate the fact that, you know, we're all here together and working together to do this. Specifically to ETH2, Zach talked about this quite a bit yesterday, if any of you saw that. So basically, Matt Slipper kind of proposed a wire solution, and then Zach was like, hey, this is too bloated. We need something simpler, and Lib PDP is not ready for most implementations, so let's build something else. He built Hobbits, and now we have basically a testing spec and another one, and the testing spec, Hobbits, should be able to be used by just about any blockchain that actually falls under the same issues that we're having in ETH2, and that's the Lib PDP. If your Lib PDP, if the language that you're writing your client in Lib PDP isn't ready, you can use Hobbits. That was written by Ethereum and contributed across everywhere. But sorry, I had to really skim over that stuff just because time reasons. I really want to get to like the big issue I want to address here, and especially when it comes to collaboration. As Scott said yesterday, Scott Moore from Gitcoin, basically, collaboration amongst projects is like extremely critical. The majority of projects use multiple libraries from other open source projects. And we're going to run into an issue in Ethereum if we continue with behavior such as maximalism and tribalism. And what I mean by this is people that are continually telling, public discourse, Reddit, Twitter, milling about issues in regards to, Polkadot stealing our developers, or Definity's closed source and we don't know what they're doing. The list goes on. I mean, the behavior's gone to the point where we've run community members out of the ecosystem, and that's not going to help us because we rely heavily on other people's work. So I gave you guys examples of what we've been contributing to. My slides are out of order. So let's look at BLS, because if we look at BLS, this is our signature library, so we can basically verify in ETH 2.0 that you are who you are. There's two main libraries, Allegro Crypto and Harumi. Up until a few months ago, most of the implementations were using Harumis, and Harumi is a library written by Definity. Fully funded by Definity. It's written by a developer at Definity, fully funded by Definity. And we're relying on it. My client relies on it, and as well as up until recently, a bunch of others. So to have bad behavior in the ecosystem and trying to tell us that we can't be talking with people like Definity, with the Polkadot teams, with the developers, this creates a really terrible developer experience for everyone in the ecosystem. Especially, again, back to Lib P2P. This is the networking stack everybody's using, so we can do cross-chain communication. There's Lighthouse in ETH 2.0 is the Rust implementation, and Polkadot, and then we're working together to build Lib P2P. And basically, another example here, this is a package JSON from actually our ETH2 client. Under the hood, we use a Polkadot library, and we actually use a Bitcoin library, because the Bitcoin guys make really good zero-dependency JavaScript libraries. And it's this type of collaboration that's really good because it helps us, progress further, so we don't have to do duplicate code, duplicate work. If you go to Gitcoin and we were to go and fund every single implementation on its own, we would not have any funds to put anywhere. So by going to other teams, other projects, funding other projects, even within our own ecosystems, what we're going to end up enabling is less work being done by us. We get free work because other teams are paying for it and funding it. And ultimately, we end up creating a better and easier experience for not just the public, but for the developers to go and, have public discourse and conversation with these developers from other chains to basically look at how can we progress, general implementations, specifications, libraries, etc. I just want to see that slide. What did I have over here? Yeah, sorry, this was supposed to be a little bit before, but this is the common debate, blockchain X is going to replace blockchain B. I don't want to single out a single grouping of people, but it typically, you only see this come from PR-based people. I'm not going to lie, it's the PR community, it's the people that have the high vocal the high voice, like high followers, whatever it being. And it just deteriorates the entire developer experience for us because there's not many people nowadays. If you go and look at, there was a question I was trying to ask at yesterday's panel. Has the community made it too toxic for developers to actually speak out? And I would probably argue to say yeah. And if that's the situation, we can't even speak out. People complain that we're too private, how Catham rules. They want to see who's talking at these meetings. We can't do that if you guys are continually being toxic to other chains. If it's just the PR people doing it, just let the PR people do it. It's not the developers. And we need to get free resources. We don't have a lot of funding. There's a lot of debate on ETH2 funding, for instance, specifically. And we should be looking at how can we work with other chains to capture their resources so that we don't have to spend money on it, and we can simply help maintain it with them. Right, okay, I'm gonna give a really good use case example here. So when we built Gourley, it was last year at ETH Berlin. The idea was basically there's not, for those that aren't familiar, there was the proof of authority testnets in Ethereum were fragmented. It was one per client, and basically they didn't talk to each other. So our mission was let's go and bridge them so that every client runs the same proof of authority testnet so that we can all sync up together. It ended up being a huge success. Parity announced they're deprecating Coven, although they deleted that tweet, but they said they're deprecating Coven, which is awesome because that means there's no more single client testnets, and we're only going to have one, and that's Gourley. And the unique part about Gourley is we saw a really, really, really great contribution from another chain contributing to Ethereum. And there was not this went really unheard. People didn't really talk about it because it wasn't an Ethereum, like an ETH contribution. The Ethereum Classic Cooperative donated a large sum of money to help continue the funding for Gourley so that they could actually benefit from it. And this is the type of cross-chain collaboration that we need to start looking at, is that other people are going to need our technology, and we're going to need other people's technology. So we need to start being open about the fact that, yeah, some people may say bad things. They may try and poach. But ultimately, if we start seeing things that happen with Gourley, where ETC, Ethereum Classics, cooperating, their fund, they're one of their big funds, funded an Ethereum ETH project. That's something we can learn from them, and I think we need to really progress forward on that. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what my final note was. It's from a different, again, long presentation. It's clipped. But again, we need to make sure we're open with other chains. We need to make sure we don't create a toxic environment, because as a developer, I do sometimes have to share a screenshot of the tweet I want to post because, am I going to get backlash and I have to send it to my team? And half the time it's nah, don't say that because we just don't want to have to deal with putting the fire out later. When all it was is saying agreeing with another chain's developer. Thank you. And if you have any questions about that, please let me know. Otherwise, I do believe lunch is ready, and we can go do that.
Thank you so much, Gregory. I just wanted to quickly ask you, why do you think there is such tribalism?
I think there's a bunch of pieces. I don't want to go down this rabbit hole, but there's a bunch of pieces within Ethereum that aren't fully fledged out, perhaps a little broken, so to speak. We could look at the EIP process, for instance, had a lot of backlash recently, especially with 999. And that's probably due also to a poorly set up process, as well as probably lack of governance. And that's ultimately the root, is because one action by one person can be looked upon as extremely terrible amongst an action against the community. And that's what's happening right now with Parity, ultimately, and it's quite unfortunate because they do a lot of really good work for us, Ethereum Classic, and Polkadot. They're the only client that really works in Ethereum Classic, well, multi-geth, but yeah, so there's a bunch of clients. But they support 3 different networks. And yeah, like we've at ChainSafe, we started to see that as well a little bit with, especially when we started, building clients for Polkadot. People aren't very receptive to it. We had some hate come to our way. I should have actually clipped it. It was a really funny tweet. They called us a traitor and tagged Vitalik saying, "Why did you help these guys?" Yeah.
Great. So
It's unfortunate.
Thank you so much for your very honest view. I think that if we are going to have the same panel again as we did yesterday, we should definitely have you on the panel.